Hi guys, and welcome to this week's video. I tell you what, I'm not sure if anybody's been here before. If you have, then you'll understand my anguish right now. If you haven't, then let me explain. To get to this area where I'm heading to, there's a small car park at the end of the road. I call it a road. It's more like off-roading, and I'm not joking. It's not just a road that has a couple of potholes. It is a road, well, it's a pothole that every now and again resembles a road. Let's just put it that way. Hell's teeth, man. What a journey. And I'm still not here yet. I've got a bit of a walk to do now. And when I get there, fingers crossed, the tide should be up and I should be able to grab some pictures. It's the middle of the day and it's blowing a hoolie. What's the chances? I'm in Scotland and it's blowing a hoolie. I tell you what, I haven't actually seen this lighthouse yet, but you've no idea how excited I am. Despite the fact it's the middle of the day, blowing a hoolie, like I said earlier. But as I look out to sea, the clouds are in and they're very dark, very dense and quite dark. At the moment, of course, that could change. But behind me, the sun is out against the blue sky and it's lighting up all of these grasses and it looks incredible. Am I going the right way? So I just can't wait for hopefully what I'm about to see when I go around this corner and up and over this dune. For an even better reveal, I don't know why, but I decided to come to this higher sand dune, or the highest sand dune, so that I can get the best view from above looking down. And I've got to tell you, it is spectacular. I absolutely love this already, and I haven't even got my camera out of my bag. This is next level gorgeous, and I mean gorgeous. It's now high tide. I've got about 30 minutes in which to make the most of this high tide. Not of course that I need a high tide here. I just need the water up and around the lighthouse, which clearly I have got. Now, looking straight down at the start of, there's like a causeway that goes out to the lighthouse. It's only accessible during a low tide. Obviously, I'm not interested in going out to the lighthouse, so I'm not bothered about that. But at the start of the causeway, there's either debris down there that I can see, or maybe a post in the water, possibly something I can use as foreground interest. And down on my left hand side as well, there's an old, looks like fishing, lobster, crab net or something. Possibly use that as foreground interest. But of course, the most important thing for me is to grab a really minimalistic shot of the lighthouse, especially with the dark clouds behind and the way it's been side lit at the moment. But I've got a funny feeling that these clouds are going to dissipate sooner rather than later. So I'm going to have to crack on. Oh, also, I've got all this beautiful ryegrass, or whatever this grass is. I've got all these wonderful grasses that I can use in the foreground as well, should I choose to use something in the foreground. But my primary objective is to grab a nice fine art image of this lighthouse, possibly putting my longer lens on, getting closer up, because it is quite a ways out. Let's crack on. What a day. Woo. Before I go wandering down onto the beach, I thought while I'm up here I'd grab a picture from a raised perspective. I've come down slightly away from the top to try and give myself a bit of a respite away from the wind. Oh, that's nice. That looks nice. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Right, so first port of call, I'm just going to grab a nice lonesome picture. Actual fact, let's throw you guys in camera. Right, so my first port of call. Let's have a look. I'm probably going to grab a picture. Let's get you guys in focus. Grab a picture of something like that. Really minimalistic. I can go in quite close there, but really, really minimalistic. If you noticed, we've got that lovely highlight on the right hand side, and because of that I've placed it on the left hand side of the frame. I mean, it probably won't make a difference if you place it on the right, or indeed if you stuck it right smack bang in the middle. But for this particular shot, I tend to do a bit of everything anyway, but for this particular shot I'm gonna grab a picture like that. 2-minute exposure, and then hopefully I'll be able to blend that horizon and make it a real nice fine arty image. But that looks stunning from up here. Now I've got my 24mm lens, so it's going to be very difficult to get that ryegrass in unless I move back away from the grass ever so slightly. But obviously I could grab a few shots like this as well, take advantage of the waves. Yeah, I'll have a look at another composition in a second, but I'm just worried that that lovely gorgeous dark cloud in the background contrasting against the highlights on that fantastic lighthouse is going to disappear. So let me grab that picture rather sharpish. Hello! It's lovely, isn't it? How awesome is that, Lee? Well, I wanted to come up here just to show the reveal, because it looks really nice from the highest point. So it looks pretty cool, but it's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah. It's so good. Right, that's that 2-minute underway. Slight issue today in that the sky is very bright, contrasting against a very dark sea. So it's not the ideal conditions, or they're not the best of conditions for blending the sea into the sky and creating my style of fine art photography. But if I choose not to do that, it doesn't really matter. The fact is I'm going to grab a lovely picture from here as well. And also, because it's so bright, with a 10-stop filter, the only way I can capture this at 2 minutes is at f20. Again, I'm really not bothered about that. But depending on what happens, or what's happening with the clouds in the sky, if I want to lengthen that shutter speed, then I'm going to have to apply my 15-stop filter. Again, I really don't have a problem with that. But these are the things that run through my head all the time. But I must admit though, that is pretty special. That looks so cool. Honestly, I can't begin to explain how gorgeous that is. Like I said earlier, the sea is very dark though, compared to the lightness of the sky. So blending the horizon might not be an option, but of course that's not all I do. People seem to think that that's all I do, and I don't. I just prefer that, but of course it still looks incredible. Now what I've chosen to do in this particular instance, only because of the lighthouse's geographical location, i.e. it's on its own little island quite a ways out into sea, and it's in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to exaggerate that. Now I'm a long way out away from the lighthouse, and I'm at 35mm, so I'm ridiculously wide. Obviously, therefore, I'm going to make the lighthouse really small in the frame. But what I love about that is the story I'm portraying here is the desolation, the isolation of the lighthouse, but more importantly, is just its geographical location. It's wonderful, and when we turn up as human beings and see such a wonderful spectacle, of course I'll try to portray that in my images. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the vastness of the open sea with that one small iconic lighthouse slapped in the middle of that scene, and I love that. And so therefore, if you come to a place like this, don't be afraid to show lots of nothing. Lots of nothing is good. Lots of nothing is really good. It's amazing how much storytelling you can tell with nothing. And that, to be fair, is pretty special. Now, there's a lot of movement in the clouds, but I think well, I'm here, so why not? I'm going to apply my 15 stop filter and go for an extended shutter speed, 4 minutes, possibly 8 minutes. But I'll try 4 minutes first because 8 minutes might be a waste of time. But certainly 4 minutes. Right. If anybody hasn't seen my video on how to take long exposures without using an app, then I'll leave a link to it. It's this video here, but I'll leave a link to it at the end of this video. And because I obviously know how easy it is to do without an app, first thing I'm going to do is set my shutter speed 250th of a second, get everything absolutely nailed on, i.e. like that, and that's me ready and raring to go. That now becomes a 2 minute exposure with a 15 stop filter in. Like so. Now if I close my aperture by 1 stop, that now becomes a 4 minute exposure. You know, as I'm waiting for this 4 minute exposure to play out, just sitting here looking out and about just reminds me sometimes of how lucky we are as photographers, or just people who like being out in and amongst all of this. Not just photographers, of course, walkers and naturists, whatever, because there's something rather special about just sitting down, shutting up, I know it's difficult, and just listening and absorbing and taking it all in. Of course, while I'm here, I have to try an 8 minute exposure. It's the law as far as I'm concerned. I'm not altogether sure that it's going to make much of a difference between a 4 minute and an 8 minute exposure, but you don't know till you give it a whirl. I've come away from the sand dunes now and the wind is quite, well, brisk, shall we say. I'm trying to figure out what to photograph now I'm down at the water's edge. Yes, I've got the sweeping waves as they're going out, and I'll do that with a couple of long-ish exposures, not necessarily 2 minute or 4 minute exposures, but maybe 10-second, 15-second exposures just to get a bit of movement in the waves. And I'm looking for points of interest in the foreground. There's some bits and pieces. The thing I pointed out earlier on with the tyre on it just looks really naff. There is a lobster pot here. I might even place that down a bit naughtily on the sand just to see if I can produce something or create something in the foreground. But there's nothing natural in the foreground that's jumping out at me. But not to worry, because I still want to grab a long exposure of the lighthouse from a really low down perspective anyway. So it's not going to be wasted in any way, shape or form. And I think the wind is picking up a little bit more, and there appears to be one or two bigger waves lapping up and around this lighthouse. I can only imagine how cool this must be in a storm. As long as you're on land, of course, not in the sea. But wow, it's ever so weird because I like these shots. I do. But I know I'm not going to like them anywhere near as much as my long exposure shots. But while I'm here, I don't know why, I just feel it necessary to photograph everything and anything. And I suppose the reason for that is because, well, A, why wouldn't you? But B, once you've captured everything you want to capture, I'd hate to think that I'm just going to say, right, that's it. I've ticked every box that I wanted to tick, and now I'm just going to go home. And that's not why I do this job. And sometimes you could surprise yourself as well, just by having a play. I mean, I'll give you an example. From here, for instance, the windows of the lighthouse, they don't quite line up symmetrically for me. They're not perfect. So I know that I want to go further along this beach to get those windows lined up absolutely 100% perfect. Because if I'm going to take a minimalistic shot, I don't want there to be any issues or anything that I'm going to be or likely to be unhappy with when I go back and create this video. Yeah, but I suppose the point I'm making is I'd hate to think that people will turn up to a place like this, tick boxes, and then go home. It's not what it's about, is it? It's not what it's about. And having just said that, I've now surprised myself with an image that I thought could possibly work, but looks incredible. Well, it looks incredible on the back of the camera. Let's first of all point that out. All I've done is shot down pretty much the same composition as my earlier shots where I was playing around with 5-second exposures, just, getting a bit of that movement in the water. And I thought, sorry, while I'm here, let's create a 2-minute exposure of the same image, slightly wider. And already it just looks something special. It really does emphasize the fact that that lighthouse out there is in the middle of nowhere. You've just got to keep playing. You've got to keep playing. Lovely shot here, really nice. I'm on top of a sand dune and I've edged back ever so slightly just so that I can show off the grasses, the sea, the lighthouse, the sky. In other words, I'm just missing the beach out, so I'm just utilizing all these incredible grasses as foreground interest. And now I've got a choice. Now I either speed up my shutter speed to freeze some of this grass or some of these grasses, or slow my shutter speed down a little bit to create a bit of movement, or a longer shutter speed to create a lot of movement. And guess what I'm gonna do? Absolutely right. Everything possible. I love this. There's a small gap and I've placed the lighthouse right smack bang in the middle of the frame. I'm not a square crop fan at all, but if ever there was a time when a square crop works, it's this now. Right, so that's it. That's me done here. And I'm reluctantly pulling myself away after 4 hours. I've been in, seriously, for 4 hours. What a fantastic location. Honestly, I'm so buzzed up about this location. And do you know what? I probably captured my favorite picture of all right at the very beginning. but there's no way I was going to walk away. Fingers crossed you guys like the pictures that I've produced from here, and do me a favor, as always, help support the channel, give that like button a bit of a nudge. If you're new here and you want to find your way back, then consider subscribing as well. Till the next time guys, cheers.